Hey everybody, what's going on? Welcome to Sit Down. I'm DJ Sixsmith. Keith Carradine from Madam Secretary here with us. How are you, sir?
Good to see you.
Welcome back.
Thank you. Good to be back.
I think you are our first return guest.
Am I?
Yeah.
Well,
It's a big honor.
Yeah.
So let's talk about Madam Secretary. You guys are
Sure.
shooting right now.
We're shooting. Yep.
We were talking off camera. Some shows it's an 18-hour day, and this is a
Yeah.
little bit different,
We have our act a little more together than that.
which I'm glad to hear. So
Yeah.
what's it been like for you to see this show grow over the last couple of years?
It's been terrific. I mean, the upside to being in a long run, because I've done those in the theater, and it gives you a chance to really settle into a character and feel very comfortable with what you're doing, to where you can kind of almost forget about it. In fact, in a long run in the theater, you get to the point where it's so automatic, it's so much a part of you, that if you stop and think, it can throw you off.
I'm sure, yeah.
But in a TV show, to have a show that's running as long as this one is now, we're in our fifth season, it gives everyone a chance who is a regular on the show to have settled into their characters and understand who they're playing very well, and be very comfortable with that. And it makes the work a real pleasure.
Yeah, definitely. And 5 years in network TV, certainly not easy.
That's not the norm anymore.
No, definitely not.
And especially a show where we do 20. We were doing, I think the first season we did 23 episodes. The second couple, I think 2 through 4, we were doing 22 per season.
Wow.
This season now we've cut back a bit. We're doing 20 shows. But that's a lot.
Yeah,
and
it's a ton of time.
Especially when the paradigm now is, a lot of these networks, you're lucky if you get 10. I mean, it's like a mini sort of series.
Yeah, people are thinking, how can I binge this as quickly as possible?
Exactly.
Whereas with your show and other network shows, you want to let it build a little
Binging
bit.
our show might take a little longer.
Yeah, you got to invest
You
some
might
time.
have to prepare yourself.
Yeah, definitely. And I heard
Prepare a lot of food.
Definitely prepare a lot of food. So you've said this before, but obviously the times are a lot different prior to the start of your show, and you playing a president, I'm sure it's interesting. So what's it been like for you playing a president in these times with everything going on?
It's a wonderful role. I'm happy that it's just an acting role.
Could be a little different if it was.
I wouldn't be even slightly remotely interested in actually getting into the world of real politics as a politician. I can't imagine it.
Yeah, I hear you.
But to do this show, particularly considering what our political atmosphere has become now, I mean, we've become kind of an aspirational show.
Yeah.
We depict things the way they perhaps could be again. Definitely the way they once were, in terms of discourse and how people speak with one another, and
respect and all of that.
with respect, and the idea of solving problems reasonably. It's a wonderful thing to be a part of, and I think it gives us a chance, to remind one another, we are all in this together, even though it may not seem that way a lot of the time.
Yeah.
Things have become so tribal now that it's difficult to imagine that we are actually all in this together. It's been a great experience being a part of a show that can address the issues of our time. And we seem to do it in a fairly timely fashion. I mean, it's uncanny sometimes how the show will address an issue, and then suddenly that issue is dominating the headlines at the same time that our episode about that issue is airing. So.
Yeah, no, it's a really interesting thing. And it's funny because TV shows can be an outlet for comedy, but your show is almost an outlet for the way things were, and just a more civil time, which I think is different probably than what you thought it would be a couple years ago.
Well, certainly. I mean, we were. I think we were more of a reflection when we started, because our first season was basically the last year of the Obama presidency.
Right, and you're holding up a mirror.
And there we were in our second season when Trump was elected, and it certainly has changed the vibe.
I think that's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
So thinking about your life, one of the things I love about your story is that, you have all these different interests in music and theater and TV, and obviously your family was a big inspiration in that. But take me back to those early days as a kid where you're just falling in love with the arts.
I realized early on that I had certain gifts, I guess you would call them. I was pretty good with my hands. I could draw. I became interested in music. I was musical from very early on. I could carry a tune.
Like how early are we talking?
There is a story, I don't remember this, but there is a story of my grandparents finding me singing nursery rhymes under the piano with a bottle of scotch.
Wow.
Fortunately, I still sing, but the scotch isn't such a big
part of my life. The scotch isn't a part of the act anymore.
That's an occasional thing now. I mean, very early on, and I would sit at the piano. We always had a piano in the house. And I began to actually play the piano when I was in high school. I picked up the guitar, I think, for the first time when I was 12.
Okay.
My grandfather gave me a harmonica when I was 8 or 9 years old, and I carried that around. A harmonica's really handy because you can put it in your pocket, you know.
Yeah, you can play
pull it out
anywhere.
anytime.
Yeah.
And I would almost always have a harmonica. I'm not a great harmonica player. I'm sort of a classic cowboy harmonica player. I'm not a blues.
I think that's better than most.
Yeah, but the guys that can really play the blues harp, man, that's a whole other ability. But anyhow, all of those things came to me early on, and when I was just about to finish high school, I sort of, as my old friend Robert Altman would say, you know, sometimes you just have to giggle and give in. And I giggled and gave in to the fact that the arts were where I was going to spend my life, and that acting. Obviously, it was in my family, my father having established that. Acting was the one place where I could go where the opportunity would present itself for me to kind of do all of those things, music and art. And, you know, when I did The Moderns, Alan Rudolph directed this film that I did where I played a painter living in Paris. And part of the gag with that guy was that he was a forger. And so in an effort to get into the role, I used to paint a bit, and so I started painting. And in fact, there was a Van Dongen that Alan Rudolph had used to model the atmosphere of the show, and I copied the Van Dongen, I added 2 figures to it, and then I put the faces of the actors on it, and we wound up using that for the poster for the film.
Wow,
so,
that's awesome.
So all of these things have come to play in my life as a performer, as an artist, as a, you know, creative outlets.
Yeah, no doubt. And, you know, it's cool because you have all these little stories from all the different projects that you've done, which is awesome. When you think about the broad scope of your career, you know, how have you remained consistent from the 70s to the 80s to now? You know, how have you done that?
Boy, consistency is the hobgoblin. Isn't that the expression of the idle mind? You know, I think that I have striven to stay awake. I mean, chiefly. I mean, that's really what it's about. As long as you are maintaining an awareness and continuing to absorb and to learn, then that feeds the creative process, and it also feeds what you can bring to a character. And as we live a life, we have all of these experiences. In particular, the actor brings all of that to bear in a performance and in fleshing out a character. And so, you know, here I am. I'm going to be 70 at my next birthday in August, and you know, I've had some experience now living this life, and all of those experiences come to play in the characters that I'm given the chance to play.
Yeah.
And in that way, I think that in that way, I've tried to stay somewhat consistent in terms of developing the craft and growing as a performer. And I've also tried to take on things that are different from things I've already done. I've tried to avoid repeating myself.
I think that's an important thing.
Yeah, I mean, if that's possible. It's not easy to do all the time. I mean, this is a business that loves to identify you, pigeonhole
Put you in a box.
Label you, this is what you are. I think I've managed to stay fairly clear of that.
Did that ever happen at any point in your career where people were starting to categorize you in a certain way?
Not really.
Because you played all these different roles.
I've played a lot of different roles. I think that when Nashville happened and I had my moment of, you know, my brief fling as a pop star, you know, there was certainly that road presented itself that I could have maybe just been that. And I think the next thing I did after Nashville was The Duelists. You know, so I went completely in a different direction, and then obviously, and then the film I did with Louis Malle, Pretty Baby. I mean, I tried to find projects, and listen, it also helps to be invited.
Yeah.
You know, to do these things, you know, to be asked. There were a lot of things that I would have loved to have done that I wasn't invited, I wasn't asked, and that's the actor's life as well. You know, there are things that you'd like to do that they don't see you as that guy. So.
Yeah, and that's a tough thing to overcome because you as an actor, you can play all these different roles, but it's somebody in the chair saying, okay, I can see Keith doing this.
Yeah, well, I like to think that I can play just about anything, but we all have our limits, don't we? I mean, I have the physicality that I have, so you look the way you look, and that's gonna lead to you being right for certain things and dead wrong for others.
Right.
It's just
and I think the business is interesting because obviously with Nashville, that's a hot time for you and people are thinking about you front of mind, at a certain point. And even now with Madam Secretary and Big Bang Theory,
Yeah.
But at a certain time, I'm sure there's other points in your career where, there were certain projects that you wanted, but you weren't getting those meetings, So it's just this kind of roller coaster ride.
Yeah, you take it as it comes, man.
Yeah.
But, I've been very fortunate, and I can't. You're not going to hear me complain.
No, I think you've had a nice little career.
I've had it pretty good.
Yeah, definitely. So thinking of Big Bang Theory for a second, it's finally coming to an end, which is crazy to think.
12 seasons, amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I know we've talked about this before, but as we look at the show coming to a close now, what will you think about with that show and that character?
Well, it's just great memories. I mean, they're a wonderful group of people to work with. Laurie is the best of the best. I mean, they know how to do funny.
I think there's a reason why he has so many shows on CBS, right?
And every time I have gone there to participate, it's just been joyful, It's a wonderful form. I did a sitcom of my own a few years back called Complete Savages, where I played a bachelor father of 5 sons. And that was a great experience because it's the classic form. It's the multiple cameras, live audience. You have these stage setups, all of the sets that you move the cameras between, but you're getting to perform in front of a crowd. And having done a lot of theater in my life, I felt very comfortable with that, Going into Big Bang Theory to be in that world again, it was just a treat, a privilege. I think the last one I did, in fact, I played Penny's dad, Wyatt, and the last one I did, which was 5-6 weeks ago, I think it's aired actually.
Okay.
I only had one line, and I'm on the phone, and that was it. She sees the phone ring, she picks it up, she says, "Hi, Dad," and I had this one line, but it was a really funny line. The way it was set up and the way it played in the show, it's amazing the craft that goes into that and how precisely they can create comedy.
Yeah, because it has to be realistic, it has to be impactful, and it's crazy to think that one line people can remember that from one show. It's pretty fascinating. So I think that's a really cool thing.
Yeah.
So we were talking about your life on the stage a little while ago.
Yeah.
What is the most amazing part of that experience? Because, we have stand-up comedians in here and they talk about the immediacy of seeing somebody laugh at one of their jokes.
Yeah.
How would you describe that feeling when you put in a performance and people recognize that face to face?
Well, the wonderful thing about theater, and it happens in the same way on a movie set, because you are performing, there are all of us there together, and you have the crew, the cameras, everybody, so there is still a sense of that. But when you're in the theater, it's a shared experience. And everyone who's in that audience is participating in that evening or in that moment. And the exchange of energy between the audience who's receiving and the performers who are sending out, but the performers are also taking in. The audience is sending out.
Right.
So there is that dance that takes place. It's a great thing to be a part of if one is fortunate enough to be a part of something, especially something that works.
Yeah.
And having done that a few times, the first thing I did was Hair. That was how I started my career. I was in the Broadway cast of Hair when I was 19, back in 1969. So being a part of something like that was such a cultural phenomenon and that had such an impact. And was so reflective of the changing sociological aspects of what was happening in this country. The next time I had a major impact in the theater was in the Will Rogers Follies, which was a big hit show and a great big in the Palace Theater. We reopened the Palace Theater after it was refurbished. That place is storied. I mean, the people who have stood on that stage are legendary. Those were amazing experiences, and again, it's the exchange between the audience and the players that really that's what makes the difference, I think.
So you mentioned your advice about keeping your eyes open, being aware of everything around you. If you went back to talk to your 19-year-old self, what would you tell him?
Enjoy this.
Yeah, because it goes fast sometimes, in the blink of an eye,
To quote Carly Simon, these are the good old days, man.
Definitely. And you have some pretty good days right now with Madam Secretary.
I'm having a good time.
Yeah.
It's a good thing to be a part of. Taya Leone, who plays our lead character of the Secretary of State, is the best of the best. And everyone with whom I'm working on that show, it's just a terrific place to go and work every day. Everyone loves being there, and there's a great sense of professional family. We're in our 5th season. We could go a while longer, you know, and I will certainly welcome that if we're given that opportunity.
I think we all would, to be honest,
yeah.
you know. And you mentioned Taya. She is the #1 on that call sheet. You know,
Yes.
you've worked with #1s before. How is
I
her
have.
leadership different than others?
Well, you know, she takes the work very seriously, but she doesn't take herself seriously at all.
That's important.
And she's fun, and she's funny, and it makes it joyful for everybody. And because of her attitude about things, there is no, you don't see any displays of temperament on this show. There's no blatant examples of you know, ego tripping. I mean, it's everyone's there to work together and to have fun doing it, and that makes a huge difference. You know, it's a lot of fun doing these things, but it's hard work.
Yeah.
And
no doubt.
it's a long day, and you have to concentrate, and you have to be prepared, and you have to consider, you know, everyone with whom you're working. I mean, it's a team effort. So if anyone is more demanding than someone else in terms of the kind of attention they might need, that can be wearing on everybody. We don't have any of that on this show.
That's great
And it's
to hear.
because of Taya. She sets the tone. You know?
So you hold Taya in really high regard.
I do.
Who are other people you've worked with that are in that same sort of category for you?
Oh my, you know, listen, I have a list of legends with
Let's
whom
hear.
I've had the chance to work, you know, from starting with Warren Beatty and Julie Christie in one of my earliest films, McCabe and Mrs. Miller. I got to work with Albert Finney on The Duelists. I got to work with Richard Widmark. I got to work with Robert Mitchum. Ernie Borgnine was a friend of mine. Lee Marvin was a friend of mine. All of these guys.
What's the
Angie
consistent
Dickinson.
thread?
These are amazing, legendary performers. And the thing I've noticed about all of them was that they were at the top of the top, and yet they were humble. They had no swagger. They were just solidly there and supportive and helpful, particularly when I worked with Lee Marvin. I was a kid, you know, and he was 50 and he was a legend. He could not have been more supportive and more collaborative and more encouraging.
That's awesome.
To me as a young performer. And that's something that I've remembered throughout the course of my career now, is that, you know, usually the best of the best are also kind of the best people. Yeah.
Yeah, no doubt. So when you're away from the stage and the screen, you know, how do you like to enjoy your life? What are little things you like to do away from it all?
Yeah, well, music, you know, that's a big part of it, because music is always there.
Yeah.
You don't need a job to make music.
No, you can just strum along or
just
get
play
that
it.
harmonica.
Exactly. And, you know, I got my motorcycles. I like to ride, you know. I like the outdoors. I've had horses now and again. I don't have one now. I don't live in a place where I can have one now. But I do enjoy the outdoors. I used to travel quite a bit. I don't travel quite as much now. But I'm also... I'm about to be a father again, so.
Wow.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
So how many kids now for you?
Well, this will be number 4.
Number 4.
And this is with the woman with whom I've been, my wife with whom I've been for 21 years now. And
That's awesome.
It's been a long time coming, and it's kind of a miracle, and we're excited, you know.
So
And,
how are
I'm
you-
just trying to stay healthy.
Yeah, how are you feeling
I gotta
about-
stay healthy and maintain my energy, you know, because that's, yeah.
How are you feeling about jumping into fatherhood all over again?
You know what? I know a lot more now than I did the last time I did it. So, you know, I have 3 grown children, so this will be a new experience for me. But hey, man, apparently I'm right in the pocket. I mean, Richard Gere's doing this. I think Rod Stewart's got a 4-year-old or something. I mean, you know, so I'm not alone
Billy
in
Joel?
this madness. Yeah.
You know what? It's a miracle, like you
Yeah,
said.
exactly.
Might as well enjoy it.
Yeah.
All right, very good. Well, Keith, thank you so much for coming
Thank
in.
you. My pleasure.
You can catch Madam Secretary on CBS and CBS All Access. We'll see you next time here on The Sit Down.